The tax trifecta with the one beautiful bill, or whatever the hell's called. This is fantastic. My man Robert Keebler over at LinkedIn, just such a huge fan of this guy. So let me show you what I'm talking about. And this is Keebler right here. I've been following this guy for years. I actually met him back at the Financial Planning Association in Philadelphia. He doesn't look like this anymore. Gotta update your picture, big guy. Dude's just a freaking legend, man. And he's had such a big impact on my financial planning careers that you should follow him for sure. Anyway, so he had posted this right here about the tax trifecta with Steve Oceans, who I follow as well. And I've never met Steve Oceans. But anyway, and it's fantastic. We're going to get in this. Man, there's so many guys out there that are just legends in this business. And it's amazing to me. It's amazing the knowledge that's out there from a tax perspective and how it can just benefit just regular Joes like you and me. All right, so we're going to go into this. I'm just going to show you the right here. So the one big beautiful bill makes income tax planning much more important than estate tax planning for most clients. This article describes numerous opportunities and illustrates how we can benefit from 3 or more of the opportunities by stacking them in what we call the tax trifecta trust. Now, you don't have to do the tax trifecta trust here, but I'm going to show you some examples here. And Keebler and Ocean, so check this out. The bill signed by Trump is a watershed moment for tax planning that will result in a renaissance in the world of income tax planning with non-grantor trust. All right, what is a grantor trust and non-grantor trust? We'll get in that in just a second. While estate tax planning will be reduced because of a $15 million federal exemption and gift tax exemptions as well, there will be renewed focus on income tax planning, and the non-grantor trust will be the cornerstone of much of that planning. So we're going to look over at, by the way, let's look at Grok. And we say, Grok, tell us the difference between a grantor trust and a non-grantor trust. All right. So a living trust is a grantor trust. A living trust, otherwise known as inter vivos, during your lifetime, or revocable trust. Those are grantor trusts. And what does that mean exactly? Well, grantor trust says a trust where the grantor, you who's establishing it, retains powers or interests over the trust assets, the ability to revoke it, change it, all that. All income, deductions, credits, and capital gains from the trust are reported to you. It flows back to your 1040. The trust itself is essentially disregarded as a separate taxpayer, all right, because the grantor usually retains significant control. But we're talking about a non-grantor trust right here, the non-grantor trust. So what does a non-grantor trust do? Any trust does not qualify as a grantor trust, meaning the grantor, you, has relinquished all prohibited powers and interests from the trust. It is a separate taxable entity. It files its own 1041 trust tax return and pays taxes on undistributed income. Here's the big one. If income is distributed, as it should be, doesn't have to, but it should be, or else you'd be crazy, the beneficiaries report it as their personal income via Schedule K1, and the trust gets a deduction. Are you hearing that? If income is distributed to beneficiaries, the beneficiaries report it as their own income and it's taxed to them as their own tax brackets. So what's Keebler and Ocean saying here? Showing up, man. Blink. All right, so trust for income shifting gives an example. All right, so we can see right here. T, a taxpayer who's in the 37% marginal tax bracket, creates a non-grantor trust, an irrevocable trust, all right, where T relinquishes its control. All right, he no longer has control. He names a trustee to manage it on behalf of his children, because he has 5 children. All right, so he's in the 37% tax bracket. He creates a non-grantor trust that produces $200,000 of annual income. So let's just say he funds his trust with, $2 million and he gets a 10% dividend. Just using that for an example. It's a non-grantor trust. So he puts $2 million in non-grantor trust. It is a gift to that trust, right? No gift tax because he has a $15 million lifetime gift tax exemption. Now that will reduce his further lifetime exemptions, but I mean, how much are we giving here? We're not going to give more than $15 million, I imagine, but still in this case, he has reduced his lifetime gift exemption from 15 to 13 million. what do you do? It's still not taxed as a gift tax. Still got to file a gift tax return, but still. So it produces $200,000 of annual income. He has 5 children who are in the 22% tax bracket. Remember, he's in the 37% tax bracket. He has 5 children in the 22% tax bracket. All right. And 5 grandchildren who are in the 12% tax bracket. If T does nothing, he will pay $74,000 of tax. $200,000 of income at 37%. If the trustee transfers $20,000 to each of the 5 children and $20,000 to each of the 5 grandchildren, the total tax payable to them will only be $34,000, a savings of $40,000 a year. So that's a significant savings. $40,000 divided by 200, what's that, 20%? That's 20% savings just right there, which means more money can go to his heirs. And heirs right now didn't have to wait till death, because it's a non-grantor trust. Now, you say, well, but Josh, it costs money to set up the trust. There's a trustee, you got to get a fee. There's the 1041's got to be filed. Yeah, I get that. But this is perpetual. Perpetual. That's a huge savings just from using the non-grantor trust. Again, a non-grantor trust, irrevocable. So T no longer has access. He can't pull that money back into his estate. So if he's going bankrupt because Sniffy Joe came from the dead and took over, and now everyone's broke, he can't do that. It's gone. But at the end of the day, what's the likelihood that happened? Not very high. All right, so keep checking this out. Trust to expand the SALT deduction. Remember, SALT, state and local taxes. Now it's up to $40,000, but it does get phased out based on income. So check this out. Both individuals and trusts are now allowed a $40,000 SALT deduction. All right, subject to phase out that begins at $500,000 of modified adjusted gross income. Assuming income below $500,000 and state taxes of $40,000, the annual savings will be about $14,800 per trust. This will make sense if the grandparents are already in a 37% tax bracket. Further shifting income off the parents' return to the trust may allow the parents to obtain a full $40,000 SALT deduction. And he gives an example here. A family creates 6 trusts for children and adult grandchildren. If each trust obtains a $40,000 SALT deduction, because remember, SALT, the trust, irrevocable trust can get the SALT deduction, $40,000. The savings is $14,000 per trust, or $88,800 on that amount of money. That's a huge savings. The increase in SALT deduction from $10,000 to $40,000 makes stacking SALT deductions a valuable strategy as well. Client's got $1 million of annual income. He sets up a non-grantor trust and transfer assets producing $500,000 of annual income to the trust. This creates 2 $40,000 SALT deductions, which he would have otherwise had too much income to qualify, because he removed that income from his own 1040, put it over here to a non-grantor trust. That means he gets to take the advantage of the SALT deduction as well as a non-grantor trust. Whereas before, he had nothing. Now he's got $80,000 of deductions. And again, for him to be, he doesn't actually get the deduction on the trust because he can't be the beneficiary, essentially, if that makes sense. There's some ways around that, but generally speaking, if you create an irrevocable trust, a non-grantor trust, you can't be in charge of it. You just can't. That's just a fact. All right, so check this out. This is another example. Client has 4 children. Client sets up a separate non-grantor trust for each child. That's 4 times $40,000, $160,000 of annual SALT deductions, in addition to the client's old SALT reduction. So that's $200,000. 5 people can get access of $200,000 of SALT deductions on that same income. Again, it's got to be an irrevocable trust. I can't stress this enough. That's huge, man. Check this out. Note that a trust must have substantial state income tax to fully utilize the $40,000 SALT deduction. Illinois has a flat tax of 4.95%. To claim the $40,000 SALT deduction in that state, the taxpayer's income would have to be at least $800,000. Arizona has a 2.5% flat tax, state tax. In some instances, however, federal tax-exempt bonds may be subject to state income tax in addition to other federal state differences. Anyway, the point being is it really is contingent on what your state tax is for the SALT. In fact, like states like Florida, South Dakota, Tennessee might not be all that beneficial because there's no state income tax. Now he's talking about QBI. T is the sole proprietor of a business with $591,900 of QBI, qualified business income. He transfers assets producing roughly $200,000 of the QBI to a separate trust for each of his children, while retaining assets producing the remaining $200,000. Neither T nor the trust will be subject to any phase out of the QBI deduction. Here we got the qualified small business, was it QSBS? Qualified small business shares, I think is what it's called. Qualified small business stock. I'm not going to get in here, but it's very interesting. Check this out. Trust to save state income tax. Don't forget that by setting the non-grantor trust up in a jurisdiction with no state income tax, by avoiding a resident trustee and or a local administration, generally avoids the state income tax on non-source taxable income. A little bit above my head, but that's why you need a qualified counsel in this regard. For residents of states that tax trusts based on residency of the settler, we used to tell them there was nothing we could do to save them from state income tax. But now there is! These states include Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, and Wisconsin. This changes our opportunities for residents of these states. This planning will work for residents of states with a high state income tax, and it will work for residents of states with no state income tax or source income in states that have a state income tax. Again, well beyond my ability. I'm just a peon from Maine, but still, you get it. There's a lot going on there. Now, here's the tax trifecta trust. Trust for income shifting. Again, we're moving money from you to your children, essentially, from your 37%, 32%, whatever it is, to your kids at 12, 10, and 22. Makes sense. Trust to expand SALT deduction. We already talked about that. Trust to save state income tax. Trust to allow Section 1 qualified business income. Trust to allow for state of qualified small business shares. But check this out. It's got an example right here. Jane is the sole proprietor of a business with $1 million of annual qualified business income. She's in the 37% tax bracket for federal taxes and combined federal state of 45%. She has 5 adult children, all in a 20% combined federal estate marginal bracket. She's transferred for simplicity, we'll just say 20% for simplicity here, but it's 19.73. To a non-grantor trust for the benefit of her children. All trust income is distributed to the children, $39,460 for each. This saves the family $39,460 in tax. That's real money. Saves her $40,000 in tax. Note that Jane didn't qualify for the SALT deductions, but the transfer to the trust would create a SALT deduction. The amount of the deduction would be determined by the trust level. Thus, the SALT deduction would be for the tax payable to be applicable on $197,000. This transfer would also increase the QBI deduction. For Jane, this deduction would completely be phased out, but by transferring the ownership to a non-grantor trust, the family could claim QBI of another $39,000. Thus, the family could stack 3 federal tax brackets by one trust. By creating a non-grantor trust in Nevada or another state that doesn't tax income, they could have state income tax savings as well. Anyway, and you see right here, you got Richard and Dolores, a married couple acquired about 500 apartment units between 1975 and 1990. These are managed by others and they pay no wages. The qualified business income from this activity is about $2 million, and their total taxable income is $2.2 million. The original basis of the improvements is fully depreciated. So you have minimal amount of qualified property, about $750,000. But based on these facts, they get to, and I'm not getting into it, but it's massive amounts of QBI if they set these various trusts up, qualified business income that they can take advantage of. Anyway, by the way, if you're interested in trust, this is an old book from like 1997 or something like that. Right here, The Living Trust. Henry Apps. There's a couple books, and if I remember, I'll put the link in the show notes. You really should There's another one by Vicky Schumacher that you should really buy, man, just to have for your knowledge, because I was ignorant about trust until my man David Tedesco told me to get these books, and I read them. Oh man, they started to make sense. Look, I'm not an estate planning attorney. It was 2002, but I started to understand how this works in terms of living trust versus irrevocable trust and whatnot. And it was very helpful to me. So if you're interested in this stuff, I would highly encourage you to get a couple of these books that I'll put links in the show notes. All right. God bless. Smash that like button. Love your thoughts. We'll see you